From Mountain Home to Raft River, we've got all the District 4 analysis you'll need to know. This is the Magic Valley Prepcast with Scott Burton.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com, coming to you live on a Friday, 2 o'clock, Magic Valley time on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. We go live there every Friday. And, of course, you can watch the Magic Valley Prepcast on replay anytime at those three destinations as well. If you're more of an auditory person, this time of year, a lot of yard work to be done. You can also listen to the Magic Valley Prepcast at IdahoSports.com or by subscribing to the Magic Valley Prepcast on your favorite podcast app, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. So here we are talking the biggest stories in District 4 athletics in the great state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring on our Magic Valley expert, Scott Burton. What's up, Scotty?
Yo, Brandon. It's day 2 of the NFL draft. That's what I know. And
yes.
I was glued to that last night. I don't know if you were, but you know, even my Rams didn't even have a pick. They traded it away to Atlanta, but it's a great time of year.
Well, without peeking ahead too far next week, Scott, I was hoping this is something you might be able to track down because obviously the big storyline was Gooding's own Colston Loveland drafted in the top 10, I believe at number 10 overall by the Chicago Bears. So, Scott, that was going to be one of the things I was going to send you on is maybe to try and reach out to his camp and see if you could get some perspective from Colston and how that all went, because I can't ever remember certainly somebody from the Magic Valley, but even from the state of Idaho going this high in the NFL draft.
Yeah. And it was pretty unique when you get Ashton Genty going at 6 and then you've got, Colston Loveland going at 10, it's like, man, Idaho. And if you were watching the draft, they did a cool little story about Gooding, showing kind of his upbringing a little bit, small town Gooding, tough rodeo kid type deal. But it was real nice touch, and those are the stories that are really kind of fun to watch when you see all these people getting drafted, all these kids getting drafted. But yeah, that was weird. 2 Idaho in the top 10.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting for sure. So yeah, maybe next week we can hopefully have a deeper dive into Colston Loveland and how the NFL draft went for him. The previous high that I can think of off the top of my head of somebody from Idaho that was like an Idaho native was like maybe Jake Plummer way back, Jake the Snake from Caldwell. He got drafted in the 2nd round back in 97. And I'm sure there's others too that I'm forgetting, but
he was fun to watch. I remember watching him at Capitol, and he had the black visor, as he played, and you could just tell that kid was going to be something. You weren't sure kind of how far he was going to go. But I remember him. Yeah, that was a big thing for Idaho. And then, of course, Leighton Vander Esch when he went, but not drafted, just kind of one of those things. Yeah, Idaho's got some pretty unique talent sprinkled in there. And then, you look back at that, those BSU teams where you had Ryan Clady and that whole crew, DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, that genre right there had a bunch of Idaho people. I mean, when I say Idaho, Boise State's included. So.
Right. Yeah. And of course, Leighton Vander Esch double dipped, right? Salmon River High School, Boise State. And then, he was drafted 19th overall. So So,
right. Yeah. Not looking at top 10, but just excited that he got drafted.
Yeah. So anyway, an exciting time for sure. The NFL draft will continue. I will say it warmed my heart. The draft is in Green Bay this year, Scott. I am a Green Bay Packers fan and owner. I own a share of the team. It warmed my heart. Did you see when they brought a bunch of the former Packers out at the start of the draft? Clay Matthews, former Ram as well. Did you see what?
Yeah. I just got off the phone with President Trump, and he told me to give you a message or whatever. Let me see what it says. Bears still suck.
Yeah, he says, my fellow Americans.
Yeah,
the Bears still suck.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, that was funny.
I'm gonna have to be kinder to the Bears now that Colston Loveland is on the team.
I know, right? And so you look at that, and and I know you're a Packer fan, and I'm a Ram fan, and nothing's ever going to change that. But now I'm looking at, man, okay, so I'm going to follow the Bears a little bit now. I'm not going to, go buy a jersey or anything, but I'm going to pull for Colston. And then Ashton in Vegas, I was kind of hoping he'd end up there, just because I mean, I love going to Vegas. I love catching games down there. I go down there once a year for a football game with a bunch of buddies, and now we're going to get to see Genty. And while you're segueing, I got a picture to show you. I'll text it to you. Maybe you can, bring it up.
Okay.
I forgot all about this, but we had Genty and George Halani, and when they were in the same backfield, they came down to Jerome and kind of stuff for our kids, and got a nice picture with them, and it's really cool. And I'm thinking, now, man, that's gonna mean something someday, right?
Yes.
Probably not, but it's definitely getting framed and put on up here in the man cave. So anyway, you can segue a little bit, and I'll find that for you.
Okay, and then we'll see maybe at the end of the show if I can get the picture loaded in and all of that good stuff. Football is an eternity away. I mean, football season is not going to start for months and months and months, but guess what? District tournament time is just around the corner in softball, and it has already started in baseball, believe it or not. We will share with you the one district tournament that has started in baseball at the end of the show. But in terms of looking at the softball landscape, we've been teasing this for a couple of weeks. This Glens Ferry Pilots softball program. We were going to do a deep dive and talk about all the things they've accomplished so far this year. It continues to be an outstanding season for Glens Ferry as we're getting down to the final couple of weeks of regular season competition. We mentioned today, Scott, Glens Ferry is on the road in Cottonwood to play Genesee and Prairie in a pair of non-conference games against the cream of the crop, as it were, from the north. And Coach Frank Case has piloted this Pilots team to a 15-2 record. They are 11-0 in Western Idaho Conference play. Again, looking like the heavy favorite. They hosted their Glens Ferry tournament a couple of weeks ago. And along the way, Scott, I keep planning on talking about, hey, Taylor Martinez just threw a no-hitter against this team. And then I sent that to you like Monday. And then before we could even do the show, like yesterday, she threw another no-hitter. So it's just like, it's insane how many no-hitters Taylor Martinez has thrown inside the pitcher circle this year as well.
Oh, man. Yeah. Right after you said that, she goes and tosses a no-no, and it was no hits, 2 walks, 12 Ks. Basically another day at the office for her, because, I mean, you look at her stat line, she's got a 1.15 ERA through the season, 165 strikeouts to 28 walks. I mean, she's just dominating on the mound, or in the circle rather.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. And then, the other thing I think of a lot with this Glens Ferry team is they steal a lot of bases. I mean, they are not afraid of running and gunning out there on the base paths. When you look at the base running totals this year in terms of stolen bases, Scott, they have 7 players with 10 or more steals. Leading the way is Madison Fisher with 31 swipes on the year. I mean, this is the team that is going to get on base and then make you pay for it on the base paths.
And the funny thing about it is you talk to Coach Case, and he's got a really good team. He's got a young team too. I think they're starting 3 seniors, 3 juniors, sprinkle in the rest of them. But, this is a team that is 15-2, and it's a 15-2 with a tiny asterisk next to it. And it's because the conference is so weak this year that they're beating up everybody in their conference. And Frank knows this. It's like, that's why he's going up north. That's why he's headed up north right now to play teams, like Genesee, who sits at like 13-2 or 14-2, wherever they're at, Prairie and Potlatch, to get those quality teams, and it's not a knock against the conference, but it is, because you're only going to be as strong as the people you're going to play. And that's going to be something that might expose them a little bit down the road if they don't find some really good competition. And you talk about the tournament they just played, they got a dose of that against Malad. And that was the game that they really wanted to perform in, just a kind of a measuring stick, and it just happened a couple weeks ago. And they came out, and Malad's like 18-2 or something like that. And Glens Ferry just sort of laid an egg. It was a morning game. They didn't wake up, and that was the one they really wanted to play well at. And they just didn't do it, and that was one of their very few chances to play a quality team this year until they head up north.
Yep. Here is Natasha King in the chat, Scott. Thanks for giving our girls some love. The King name right now synonymous with Glens Ferry softball. Last year, Campbell King was the only senior on the team. And so we knew, that they were pretty much going to run it back this year. And then, of course, this year, you've got Quinn King, who is a senior, and Clara King, who is a junior. And all of these are K names: Campbell, Quinn, Clara, all double Ks, which I love. And so those are a couple of the big names. We talked about Madison Stewart leading the team in stolen bases, Taylor Martinez inside the circle, and then Sahira Arevalo, who is an outstanding all-around athlete. She was a great basketball player this past winter for Glens Ferry. She is a 609 average, Scott. She's batting over 600 on the season.
Oh, she leads the team in everything but triples. She's second in triples, but she leads in batting average. She leads in runs scored, RBIs, doubles, home runs. And like you said, hitting 609 on the season. You throw somebody like Martinez in the circle, you put somebody like Arevalo at the plate, surround them with all of these really good athletes. You've got a pretty dang good team there, and they know it.
So this is really going to be a defining stretch for them in terms of playing the 2 games today, Genesee and Prairie, and then they added a game with Potlatch as well that they're going to play tomorrow in Cottonwood as well. So they are going to play the top 3 teams really from the north: Genesee, Potlatch, Prairie. This will be kind of a defining stretch for them. And Scott, if they come up and play really well and get a couple of wins, this is going to set them up really well in terms of Max Prep's rankings potentially, and having a favorable seed when the state tournament gets decided.
Yeah, absolutely. And so not only is this just a test, kind of where they're at on the season and how good they are, and if they're as good as their record, this is also for Max Preps, because they have got to start padding that just a little bit to have some favorable matchups when they get to the state tournament.
Yep. Because you mentioned it, their conference overall is a little weak in terms of, I don't even know who you would say is the second best team. I can tell you what the standings say, but it is really hard to identify. It really is Glens Ferry and then a significant gap and then everybody else. But when you look at the Max Preps rankings statewide for 2A softball, Glens Ferry only checks in at number 3 right now, behind both Potlatch and Genesee. So this is a chance for them to perhaps make a move in those Max Preps rankings. If you're number 1, then that means Potlatch and Genesee are on the same side of the bracket potentially, and you could avoid all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really, really important weekend for this Glens Ferry team. And, and you talk more about this team. Defensively, they've been really, really good. I think the thing, and when you talk to Coach Case, the thing that is really their Achilles heel is just their lack of being super aggressive, like having that killer instinct. They're trying to get some of that back. That has just really been the thing that's held them back. And so a lot of these games, and I don't know, it could be the competition that they're playing too, because a lot of times we play to the level of our competition. And this particular Glens Ferry team sometimes just doesn't get it going until about midway through, right? Well, I don't know. That could be because they're not playing all these great schools yet. But that's something they're going to have to fix and address, and they know it. In fact, they went out or Frank did, hired a good friend of his, talk about Kings, Kevin King, who went to school with Frank, brought him on board just to help bring that little fire, that aggression back, because that's the one element that they're just a little bit lacking in at the moment.
Yep. And of course, Taylor Martinez, great pitcher. Her dad is Casey Martinez, the baseball coach at Glens Ferry as well. And so, yes, a lot of good competitive players on that team. Here is K3GZ in the chat. When is the North Idaho Prepcast? We did that yesterday, my man. You can find that on replay at the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. Any of those 3 destinations. Ryan Skaggs and I chopped it up yesterday talking about North Idaho sports. There. And Magic Valley and North Idaho collide this weekend, as we said, with Glens Ferry taking on Prairie, and Genesee today, probably right now as we're speaking, and then Potlatch tomorrow. So maybe we'll circle back and see how the road trip went for them on next week's show. Scott, let's continue down the softball track where Wood River is once again excelling, having a very strong season. Mackenzie Nelson, senior, University of Montana commit, as a Grizz faithful, diehard. It warms my heart when we get Idaho's best athletes to come play for us. So she's going to be part of the Montana softball team next year. But for now, a Wood River Wolverine, Scott. And this is just kind of a microcosm of the season she's having. And I know Jerome just played Wood River yesterday, so you kind of got to see it up close and personal. But Wood River took a doubleheader from Minico last week, 14-3 and 23-6. Now, in the first game, Mackenzie Nelson hits for the cycle. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. Homer, triple, double, single. Well, then it's like she one-ups it in the second game, a 23-6 win. She homers 3 times in the same contest. And that's just, I mean, her abilities have been off the charts this year.
You know, when you watch Mac kind of progress through the years, and, you know, she early on in her playing there, she struggled a little bit because she was little, you know, she didn't have the power. It's tough to get the ball, you know, really out of the infield for that matter, but started to kind of really come around. And when I say little, I'm talking like preteen stuff, because she had always been around softball with Matt, you know, and got to spend a couple weekends ago up at the state AD conference with Matt and hung out with him for a bit. And it was a really nice visit, and good dude. And so anyway, when Mac kind of hit about 13, 14, somewhere in there, she started to develop a little bit of power. She started to see things and feel things and get into that groove as a hitter. And that's when the ball started going on the other side of the fence, right? Well, listen to this. From this year, from April 5th, when they played Sugar Salem, to April 19th, that's 2 weeks, okay? In that 2-week span, okay, she hit 13 home runs, had 30 RBIs, and an 800 batting average, 9 straight games with a home run. And she set the single season school record with that 9 games in a row, and then the career record of 23. So, I mean, this is a pure hitter. And the thing about it, and I guess the really nice caveat that Coach Nelson has with this, is she's going to be a tough one to pitch around, because you go back to that Minico game where she just absolutely went off. You know, you'd think, okay, well, why aren't you pitching around her? You know, why are you doing that? Well, guess who's waiting to hit? That's going to be Peyton. And Peyton has been swinging the bat really well. You know, so you put a good hitter behind Mac. Now you've got a decision to make, because it reminds me back when Barry Bonds was playing, and the guy that, you know, was kind of hitched to him was Jeff Kent. And they had a nice 1-2. It's like, okay, who are you going to pitch to? You know? So they would have Bonds go first. Kent would follow, but obviously they're going to pitch around Bonds. That means they're going to have to throw to Kent. And Kent just lit everybody up and had just a tremendous couple of years following Bonds, because they had to throw to him. They couldn't go around him too, right? Well, it's kind of the same situation. Pick your poison. You know, Mac's going to put it into the next county, but here comes Peyton. You put Mac on board, she's going to find a gap or do something herself. So it's a really nice problem to have. But, man, what a season she's having.
Yeah, it's kind of like right now with the New York Mets, Juan Soto and Pete Alonso are batting back-to-back, and Alonso is having just all-time start to the season for the Mets. So, when you look at Mackenzie Sr., she is leading Wood River in every single statistical category, but it goes beyond that. She is leading the state, Scott, in most of these categories. She's batting .743 on the season. Hey, no offense to Hira Arevalo from Glens Ferry, 609. Yeah. Okay, not that impressive, okay, compared to Nelson's .743 average. 17 home runs, Scott. That leads the state. She leads the state in slugging percentage, over 1,700. She's 2 off the lead in RBIs. She is 4 off the lead in runs. She leads the entire state in on-base percentage. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, you know, and then you got to factor in something else that maybe people don't think about, is she's in Wood River, and they are spending the first part of their season trying to get snow off the field, you know, playing in elements and having maybe games canceled or whatever the case is. They're not starting their season in the Banana Belt and having all these great weather games, you know, so there's something to be said about that too. And to do it kind of through all that when they're not getting practice time really because they're snowed in. I mean, they're fighting for gym time with everybody else. And a lot of those practices are not happening on a field. In fact, I think it was just a couple of years ago talking to some of the Wood River people that, they had less than 5 practices the entire year on a field because of the weather. And that's just what you get. So it kind of puts a little kind of special mark on what she's able to do considering that. And, you factor in the kind of person she is too. She's one of the most competitive people that you'll meet. She's one of those people that people describe her as, she's super nice, super sweet, very kind of artistic. But then you get her on a competitive playing surface and it's just like, bam, here we go. In fact, Matt was telling me that, he'd go out to the mound and visit her because she looked upset. And so he'd walk out and go, what's up? And she'll just respond that she's ticked off because of a walk or something. And Matt will say, well, you just struck out 11 people. Yeah, but I walked somebody 2 innings ago. And she's just holding on to that. That's just the kind of like competitive mentality that she's got. And that makes her good because she's obviously a natural born leader and people are going to try to follow that competitiveness. And they're just in the conference 1 game back of Twin, and they've got Twin coming up tomorrow. And that's going to be a huge, huge doubleheader for them.
Yeah, we should have mentioned Matt Nelson, the head coach there at Wood River. He's the dad as well to Mackenzie and Peyton, right? They're sisters, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, making sure I got all the dynamics correct there. And then, you look at these standings right now. Twin is 9-1. Wood River and Burley are each 8-2. And then even Jerome, Scott, your Jerome Tigers are 6-4 and kind of lurking right there as well. So that's kind of an interesting top 4 in this conference.
I had a chance to do some damage yesterday at Wood River, but lost 2 close ones, one 11-10 and another one, whatever. But, that one kind of set us back, but it really put Wood River in a really nice position if they're able to get by Twin. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
The conference will be decided with this series. It is the season finale in Wood River. A Wood River sweep gives it to the Wolverines. A Twin Falls sweep obviously gives it to Twin. And a split, I think, would still go to Twin as well because Twin is already 1 game up in the loss column as well. So Wood River needs to sweep this thing to win the regular season title. But I have a feeling these two aren't done seeing each other at the end of the regular season, probably at districts also. But
yeah, nope, this is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started.
Yes, for sure. Okay, Scott, let's just keep it in the Great Basin Conference and let's switch to baseball here just for a moment because the district tournament started yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is kind of a funky looking bracket here that we're going to share with you on the screen. The Great Basin postseason tournament has started now. Unlike softball, which has Canyon Ridge is not competing in the Great Basin Conference in baseball. They are playing 6A baseball. So it's a 6-team affair where essentially, Scott, the top 2 seeds, number 1 Twin Falls, number 2 Mountain Home, hosted the beginning of the district tournament yesterday. And so I'm going to pull up this bracket here, and then you can kind of talk us through it and already, how the results are looking because we had already 4 district tournament games all just yesterday. So at the top, you had number 1 Twin Falls hosting number 4 Minico and number 5 Wood River. So those 2 teams played each other, and then the loser of that first game had to play Twin Falls. Unlike other brackets where we're used to seeing the winner advance to play the team that had the bye, the loser, in this case Wood River, had to play Twin Falls right away. So explain this bracket to us, and then we'll get to the bottom half of the bracket here in just a second.
Sure. So the IHSAA is taking over baseball for the first time ever. It had never been a sanctioned sport until now, and this is the first year they're doing it. So what they're doing is they're creating these super regional tournaments, right? So after the Max Preps rankings come out, they're going to have these super regional tournaments, which is basically a small double elimination or a best of 3 type deal, right? And from those super regionals that are going to go kind of throughout the state, they're going to narrow it down to, I believe it's just the 4 teams, right, Brandon, that are going to go to the state tournament.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, this particular bracket, we asked our coaches, we just said, hey, what do you want to do here? Because we can have a normal district tournament, or do you want something different? And so the coaches that responded to us said, you know what, put something together that does its best job to mimic a super regional, if you can. And this is what we came out with. And I tell you, you try to read it, it reads like Chinese pig Latin. It's not going to make any sense. It almost needs to be a narrative that says, if this person wins or this team wins, here's what happens. And then you just go down the list and read it. But it's a tough bracket to kind of organize. It does need some explanation to it. But that's where we're at. We started yesterday.
Okay, so we'll tackle the top half of the bracket first, and then we'll go to the bottom half of the bracket, because here's what happened yesterday. Minico, the number 4, plays Wood River, the number 5, at Twin Falls High School. Minico wins that game 11-1. Dominguez, 5 RBIs in the victory for Minico, leading the way there for the Spartans. So then Wood River, with the loss, has to turn around and play Twin Falls right away, the number 1 seed. And Twin Falls ends up winning that game 11-2, the final score there. And so you can kind of see right down here, Wood River already 0-2. They are out. So this is still kind of a double elimination tournament, Scott, where Wood River dropped to Minico and dropped to Twin. And so now today, Twin and Minico will play each other. Neither side has lost yet. And basically then the same 2 teams will play here, and it turns into kind of like a best of 3 series, correct?
Correct. It's exactly what it turns into. So what they'll do is they will play a doubleheader today, and if somebody sweeps it, it's over. If they split it, then they'll play 1 game tomorrow afternoon to decide it.
Okay, I like that. So yes, Twin Falls won that game over Wood River 11-2. I'm always interested in Twin Falls' pitching. They went with Jordan Bingham. He went 7 innings, gave up the 1 run, only 4 hits allowed, 8 strikeouts, which means some of those other studs are still available today. I'm thinking like Stadelmeyer and some of those other guys for Twins. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how the pitching lines up there. If we go to the bottom half of the bracket, Scott, Mountain Home is the number 2 seed. So they were hosting Burley, the 3 seed, and Jerome, the 6 seed yesterday. And right away, Jerome says, hey, we're here to play. 7-4 win over Burley in that first game of the day. The leader at the plate, Sawyer Tilley, went 3 for 4 with a double and an RBI. Julian Orozco had 3 RBIs as well. So this is already, Jerome, the 6th seed, getting a win over Burley. And then Burley had to play as the loser. They had to play Mountain Home. Well, guess what? Burley turns around and knocks off Mountain Home, the number 2 seed overall. So this one's going to take a little more explanation because nobody has actually been eliminated yet, where you've got Mountain Home and Burley each with a loss. Jerome still undefeated. Burley won that game over Mountain Home yesterday, Scott, 9-4. And here is what was most surprising to me and maybe indicates that Mountain Home might be in trouble. Trey Morse pitched 4 2/3 innings of that game, Scott. He gave up 5 runs. Now, only 2 of the runs were earned, which means the Mountain Home defense let him down a little bit. But already, Trey Morse has already pitched a majority of 1 game already, and that is kind of the ace up Mountain Home's sleeve. Yeah. And so now you've got Mountain Home playing Jerome today, correct?
Yeah. So this thing did not go chalk. I don't think anybody was really surprised at some of the outcomes, because you take that first game with Jerome and Burley, even though Jerome really hadn't done very well record-wise against the conference, it was really more of them having the inability to close anything out, because, they are a pretty decent team. They had Twin down in the 7th inning and couldn't hold it and lost by 1, and so, and I remember talking to the Twin coaches, and they're like, how in the world are you guys 1-7 in conference? I'm like, well, we just can't close anything out, or something, but we can play with anybody on any given day. And so those kids showed up and they beat Burley. Okay. That wasn't really what everybody was expecting, but again, not surprising. So then Burley, because they lost, had to play Mountain Home. And so Mountain Home, correctly thinking, you know what, we're going to throw Trey and we're going to get Burley out of here. And then we're just going to roll the dice with Jerome and let's go. Well, Trey didn't have his best stuff. He didn't get defensive support. And next thing you know, Mountain Home was like, holy crap, we just lost our ace and we just lost the game. And now we're going to have to go play kind of a hot Jerome team playing with some confidence. And who are we going to throw? You know? And so I do believe they did have, if I'm not mistaken, their number 2 pitcher injure himself in the game last night. So I don't know if he's even available. So Mountain Home is going to have some creative work to do on the mound. And so that game is going to happen at 3. Win or lose, Jerome's going to play Burley at 5. Okay. And so if Jerome beats Mountain Home, Mountain Home's out. If Mountain Home beats Jerome, Jerome's still going to play Burley, and that game now becomes a loser out, with the winner of that game playing Mountain Home on Saturday, one game. Follow all that?
Yes. And Scott, I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
If Jerome wins both games tonight, they move on to the district championship.
Yeah. And so, right, because they'll eliminate both of those teams.
Yeah.
And so that means whoever comes out of that Twin Falls region will play the winner of this region from Mountain Home, and that game will happen next Friday, I believe. And so, yeah. And then after that, it just gets turned over to Max Preps at that point. And now let's see what we got, because that's where it's going to get super interesting. Now, I mistakenly said that baseball hasn't been sanctioned. It is sanctioned. It just hasn't been sponsored by the IHSAA. So I kind of misspoke there. But when we get to that super regional that the IHSAA has all drawn up, this is where it's going to get really, really interesting in a lot of different ways. You know, we alluded to this a little bit last week, and it just the travel, because there's not any, when I say regional, that's the entire state of Idaho. I mean, it's kind of a misnomer, if you will, because you could have this corner going up to this corner. You just don't know how it's going to shake out. Max Preps is going to determine that.
Yep. Yes, just to circle back on the Mountain Home thing, where they committed 5 errors defensively, which is just, you can't do that at this time of the year. Trey Morse ended up throwing 113 pitches, Scott. And so, you know, he's done. You can't, I believe the number is, I could be wrong, I think it's 100. You got to throw less than 100 if you want to come back and pitch in 2 days. So, and it's even less than that if you want to pitch on consecutive days. So he's done. You mentioned they have kind of a top 3 with Chapman and Nehemiah Lyle. Lyle pitched last night. I'm assuming that's the guy you were alluding to that wasn't able to finish the game, had to leave with an injury. So Chapman is the guy. If I'm Mountain Home today and we're playing Jerome or playing Jerome right away, Chapman is the guy I'm throwing, and then we will figure it out when we get to Saturday potentially. So that is what I would expect to see from Mountain Home. But I got to be honest, this bracket it's kind of confusing to look at, but it's got the juices flowing, Scott. I kind of like it. There's a lot of strategy involved and a lot of implications.
Well, there is. And the whole design of it explains better than it does looking at it. You look at it and holy cow, I mean, your head hurts, but you get it explained to you and okay, it makes sense. And it's, you know, the best thing that we could do to mimic that super regional that they're going to, you know, be entering into here in a little while. But man, does that teach us something about, number one, managing your pitching, and 2, you know, quick bounce backs, and just basically knowing how your body's going to respond, the downtime, the pressure. I mean, these kids, whoever comes out of this, when they get to that, they're going to go, okay, we've been here before. We know how this feels. We know what to do. So hopefully it helps our conference. We'll see.
Yep, for sure. So that is going to be a lot of fun, and we will update you on how that all went on next week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. I will say just quickly, Scott, looking at the Max Preps rankings here, because that's how the last 4 spots are going to be determined for the super regional. The Great Basin does get 2 automatic bids based on district representation. I assume it's going to be the 2 teams that play in the district championship. And then from there, who could potentially make it as an at-large? Twin Falls is currently ranked 2nd in the state, according to Max Preps. Burley is ranked 4th. Mountain Home is ranked 6th. I think all three of those teams feel pretty good about competing somewhere at the Super Regional. It gets interesting. Minico is ranked 12th right now, so they would be at the very end of the cut line. They would be the last team in potentially. So even if they can just steal a game from Twin, let's say they lose that best of 3, 2-1, a win over Twin might be enough to elevate them past some of these other teams where they're a little more comfortable. Of course, they could also just get to the district championship and win. Jerome is the team that's really, going to be a bid stealer here. They are currently ranked 15th in the Max Preps ranking. So if Jerome can find a way to knock out Moho and Burley and get to that district championship, they just stole a bid from somebody, and it might be like Minico. Jerome may have stolen it from Minico potentially.
Yeah. I mean, the Great Basin's got a chance of getting 4 teams into that Super Regional. I mean, that's what they're staring at right now. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, if Jerome continues to catch lightning in a bottle like they're doing right now, then yeah, they're going to make somebody very upset.
For sure. Well, Jerome has been making people upset in speech for years and years and years. Scott, the dynasty continues. The state speech championships were held recently. You are, of course, the coach for Jerome's speech team. And remind us again of how many years you've been coaching speech and how many years Jerome has brought home the first place trophy.
Well, in order to tell that, I have to preface it with when the program started back in '83 by 2 ladies that are very dear to me, Judy Fredrickson and my mom, Linda Burton. They started this whole thing. And I was on that team as a freshman. And so they coached the team. I was on it. And, between playing football and basketball and baseball and track, I was on speech as well. But that's what those ladies did, is they brought in like athletes and school leaders, because those are the people that were competitive, right? And so they coached from '83 to '98, 15 years. And I think in that time they won like 10 state titles. And then I took over in '98 and '99, and I think we just won our 23rd. I think, I think.
That's a good problem to have when you can't even remember how many it is because you've won so many.
Well, it got really weird there when we hit COVID, because we had, between 99 and 19 in that 20-year span, we won 17 of those titles, took second 3 times, but then COVID hit, and then that season got completely canceled. And then I came back for a season and we won, and then I retired for a year, and then we took second, and then I'm like, that's not acceptable. So I came back, and then we've won 3 more since then. But it's a group effort, between me and a guy named Trevor Churchman and Chesney Olson, and it used to be Shelby Burke, and now it's going to be Elizabeth Hadley. And so there's a lot of people that are contributing to this. And as long as these kids continue to drink the Kool-Aid, man, you just kind of get out of their way. But it really is a cool thing to watch these kids grow in this area that people hate to do, and especially in this day and age where we're so, technologically advanced, we still don't know how to talk to each other. I mean, we're the most connected society in the world, yet the most disconnected from each other. And watching them kind of grow in this is really, really cool, because it's going to pay dividends for them down the road. And so I'm, of all the coaching I've ever done, from football coaching to basketball coaching to baseball coaching to volleyball, I mean, everything you can name, I've coached it. This is the one thing that is kind of like my baby, just because we've built this machine and it's doing so well, but paying dividends for so many kids down the road. We're just honored to be a part of it. And this might be my last year. I don't know. I keep saying that, but I'm going to start stepping back a little bit and turning the reins over to some people that I'm training to help take over so I can walk away. We'll see what happens.
Okay, we will keep an eye on it, and if you decide to make that decision, we expect the exclusive announcement here on the Magic Valley Prepcast. All right.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, I know you've said this in the past, but when you took the athletic director job at Jerome, you had two conditions. Number one was that you still got to work for IdahoSports.com. And then number two was you still got to coach the speech team, right?
That is correct. You got a very good memory, like an elephant, Brandon. Always remember where the water hole is. But you're exactly right. Those are the two conditions that I had, and that I could lead the speech team at my own, I guess, desire, my own way, and but I wasn't going to sacrifice that, or I wasn't going to sacrifice this at all, or I wasn't going to be AD.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate Jerome High School being so cooperative throughout all this as well. Speaking of athletic directors, and Magic Valley is just like chock full of like statewide. You know, I have to email ADs all the time for schedules and scores and district tournament brackets, and I have sort of like go-to ADs that are like really good at like responding to me. Some ADs I don't ever hear from, and maybe they got a lot going on or whatever. But then there's ADs that I call them my go-to people, because I'll ask them a question and they'll respond. You're obviously a go-to person. I can ask you something and you'll have an answer for me pretty quickly. But there are tons of go-to ADs for me up and down the Magic Valley, from the 5A ranks all the way down to 1A. And one of those go-to ADs is just been recognized as the state athletic director of the year for his classification, the Class 4A AD of the year at Kimberly High School, Zach Dong. Congratulations.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, talk about just one of the good guys. I love Zach. He is amazing at what he does. He's just a genuinely nice person, and it couldn't be bestowed upon anybody more deserving. I mean, this is a guy that's kind of been around the block a little bit. 17 years in education. He started at Filer, and I think from Filer ended up going to Pendleton, Oregon, doing some coaching, and eventually went back to Filer, I believe, and became their AD for a couple of years before bouncing over to Kimberly and taking over for legendary Kirby Bright. And, and having Kirby as a mentor, man, there's not a better guy out there than Kirby. Well, man, Zach's doing a great job following, those kind of footsteps. And, it's, I got the opportunity to coach with him. He's got a little boy, and I've got a couple of girls about the same age, and we went through this upward basketball program together for our kids, and they were on the same team. And so Zach and I got to kind of coach together last year or a year and a half ago, and that was a lot of fun. But through everything, well deserved. He's very involved in state stuff, board stuff. So congratulations to him, and just a super dude.
That honor was handed out at the 34th annual state conference in Boise earlier this month, which you were a part of. I think for 5A, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Tom Shanahan from Bishop Kelly? Was he the 5A AD of the year?
No, it was, gosh.
That must have been for his conference. He was the conference AD of the year. I saw it on social media. Now I'm putting you on the spot because you were supposed to be there.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look it up.
You were too busy schmoozing.
I don't know if it wasn't I was paying attention. It's just my memory's not like yours, Brandon. I don't ever find the water hole. You do, so I don't know. I'm sure, it's easily findable, but that was a good honor for the Magic Valley, so congratulations there.
For sure. Okay. Well, Scott, on that note, while you look for that, I will share the picture that you talked about earlier. Our boss, Paul Kingsbury, was kind enough to drop this in backstage while we were talking about all these great Magic Valley stories. There it is.
Yeah. That was, we had George Helani on the left and then Ashton Genty on the right, come down to Jerome, give some of our boys some tips. And we were fortunate enough to get, a picture with them. And man, we're pretty excited we got to do that. And so, Les and I will be putting that on the wall somewhere, and then it's just one of those cool things. You just didn't know what was going to happen when the picture was taken, right? And now he's a first round, number 6 pick overall. So very, very cool. Very cool.
Yep. I'm more intrigued by your t-shirt, Scott.
Yeah. It's funny because that particular shirt, oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. I got that in Arizona when I went down to the Waste Management golf tournament. And I was in need of a shirt, and we stopped into this restaurant or wherever the heck we were. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I just grabbed it and threw it on, not even thinking, that it would show up in this picture that's going to be on my wall forever. But yeah, that was from the Waste Management on the 16th hole, where all the chaos is.
Yeah, it looks good. So anyways, that's a fun time for sure. And so, yes, on next week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast, we will see if we can check in with the Colson Loveland camp. Now that he's a big time NFL player, he has a camp. So you got to check in with his people and see if we can, have him share his experience of being drafted 10th overall, which is still just incredible. And then, of course, we will have more district tournament brackets to share with you, as well as baseball postseason had to start a little earlier than we're used to, Scott, because of the extra weekend of super regional competition.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And especially with all this stuff happening with football drafts, weird district brackets, it's going to be fun coming down the stretch. You think that spring's going to be kind of quiet, but man, it just doesn't get any slower.
Nope. We are hurtling full speed ahead for sure. In fact, Scott, I'm sure you got to get ready for these big baseball district games tonight with Jerome. So,
yes, I do. But before we sign off, go ahead. I got something here.
Oh man, Scott's taking the show on the road here. As I say, it sounded like you were opening your garage door.
I was. Okay. I'm gonna something here really quick. There we go. Okay, Brandon. I was challenged by my sister on the mental health ice bucket challenge. And I am now going to take my ice bath and speak your mind, be kind to each other, help each other, and always be there for each other. We're all in this together, so make sure that you remember we're all on the same team. Challenged by my sister at Eagle High School, I am now challenging Brandon Baney, Paul Kingsbury, and my little daughter Paisley for the Ice Bucket Challenge. Here we go. Oh, geez. Yeah. Oh. Oh, gee. Oh, criminy. Well, that's it, Brandon.
Are you going to explain about the forks?
I already did.
Oh.
All right, Scott. Yes, I was wondering what your cold as ice moniker was about. You just did the ice bucket challenge. It's been spreading like wildfire throughout southern Idaho. It hasn't really caught up to us in North Idaho yet. So,
well, it's gonna, because you're gonna do it.
Okay, challenge accepted. Scott, I will let you towel off and get warm and toasty. Thanks for doing this.
All right, you got it. We'll see you. We'll see you next week.
And on that note, thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everybody. We'll see you back here next week for another edition on IdahoSports.com.